Good morning. How the devil are you all doing this fine day? Hope you're all fit and well. Early start for me today, as I've already had a Microsoft Teams meeting. Got that under my belt nice and early. One of the many joys of dealing with people based in New Zealand, I guess. Now, as you know, on Wednesday next week, we will be hosting the world premiere of our new film featuring the Jumbo, one of the biggest demolition excavators in the world. Well, we're going to support that with a couple of giveaways. Got one of them close to hand, actually, now I think about it. Yes, I came back from Italy clutching a couple of Despe polo shirts. Polo shirts, there you are. And you just know, because they've come from Italy, they're very good polo shirts as well. I've got here a medium and a large, and we'll be giving both away on the night. In addition to that, I've written what I can only describe as a mini book on the Jumbo, on Despe, and on my visit to Bergamo. All those watching next week will have access to a free copy of that electronic book before it goes behind a paid firewall the following day. So stick around and make sure you put that date in your diary. Wednesday, the 28th of June at 7 p.m. You could just pick up a little souvenir all of you for your own. Now, if that's enough to whet your appetite for next Wednesday, then maybe this will convince you. Yeah, believe me, it gets way better than that. So, Wednesday, 7 p.m. Please be here. I'd love to see you there. I've got, as I say, got a couple of t-shirts to give away as well. Make it even better. So, without further ado, let me roll the intro, post the question of the day, and get this show on the road. It is Thursday, the 22nd of June. Welcome to the Breakfast Show. I am your host, Mark Anthony. In today's show, Hitachi unveils a brand new electric excavator. And as you'd expect from Hitachi, it's a corker. Wacker Neuson has a new zero-tail swing excavator, and we've got some footage of that. And we're going full beast mode with one of the biggest excavators in the world, the Liebherr R 9800. Plus, thanks to our resident Sprocket Man, Mr. Ken Hatcher, we will be bringing you the Caterpillar Backhoe Loader Song. I'll leave you to decide whether that's a good thing or not. We'll get to all of that in just a second. But first, let's peer back through the mists of time to see what was happening on this day in history. On this day in 1377, remember it well, Richard of Bordeaux succeeded his father as King of England. He was 10 years old at the time. On this day in 1911, King George V was crowned. In 1934, John Dillinger was officially named America's first ever public enemy number one. In 1941, Nazi Germany and its allies invaded the Soviet Union. Big mistake. Huge. In 1955, the Disney movie Lady and the Tramp was released. And in 1981, tennis superstar John McEnroe delivered his "You Cannot Be Serious, Man" rant at Wimbledon. I do remember that one well. And now, before we get into the real meat of the show, let me remind you very quickly of our question of the day. Yes, I think I've got a bit confused here. Our question of the day today is not the one that I put in the chat. It's that one. If you could hop back in time and quietly whisper in your parents' ears, what would you like to have been called? Now, I fully realise that names like Gary and Peter and Dan are all well and good, but what would you like to have been called? Personally, The name Mark Antony has been both a blessing and a curse. I was tortured for it at school by my history teacher, who punished me by forcing me to recite the Friends, Romans, Countrymen speech from Julius Caesar if ever I stepped out of line. I had the last laugh, though. For several years, that was actually the intro to my podcast. But how about you? Does anyone wish they'd been called Clint or Brad? Helen? I don't know. How about you? Let me know in the chat. What would you like to have been called? Listen, if you'd like, I'm more than happy to change the buttons on my Stream Deck. If Peter would like to be known forthwith as Petra, I can make that happen. It's not a problem. Let me know in the chat. So, couple of very quick answers. What would you like to have been called? Chris Wall says, anything apart from late for my lunch. Well done, sir. Peter McKenna is not going to be changing his name because he was named after his great-grandfather, who was a famous doctor. Well, I never did. Dan says he would like to have been called Dave. Dave. You can trust a Dave. Like Dave from Only Fools and Horses, who obviously was called Rodney. I don't know. Never did figure that one out. Now, it is always big news when Hitachi drops a new excavator. Even bigger news when the excavator is electric powered. But if you also stir in a spot of zero tail swing, the new machine simply had to be our star of the show today. And this is what she looks like.
I'd like to introduce you to the ZX55U-6EB, a new 5-ton battery-powered excavator, designed to meet the growing demand for zero-emission equipment. The first of its kind to be produced by Hitachi, it proves our commitment to delivering sustainable solutions to our customers and responding to your needs for improved safety, increased productivity, and reduced life cycle cost. Let's take a closer look. For zero-emission performance, you can choose between battery-powered operation using 39.4 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion batteries and wired operation, which allows you to walk while charging from CEE 400-volt 3-phase power source. Utilizing both methods means you can walk productively throughout the day. Reduced noise levels are ideal for urban environment and gives you greater flexibility for walking outside of conventional walking hours, as well as create a more comfortable walking environment. You can walk confidently and safely in small spaces, thanks to the short tail swing inherited from ZX55U-6 diesel model. We've made the battery system as small as possible to maximize the advantages of this mini excavator. It has a rear-end swing radius with battery operation of 1360 millimeters and with cable operation of 1860 millimeters and offers exceptional maneuverability. The unique cable support ensures safe and continued operation with the power supply. The camera system gives you exceptional visibility to the rear of the machine and also allows you to monitor the secure connection of the cable. Renowned for the comfort and user-friendly features, it also has air conditioning as standard. Additional safety features include battery disconnect switch and green LED light and audio alert when the machine is in operation. To help reduce life cycle costs, this new model has maintenance-free batteries and fewer serviceable components than diesel-powered alternatives, saving time as well as money. You can monitor the status of the electric drive system, including battery level and the motor load factor and the machine's location remotely. As well as reducing cost, this also contributes to a reliable performance and maximum uptime. So, with the new ZX55U-6EB, You can future-proof your fleet with emission-free, low-noise equipment. And work in partnership with Hitachi to build our future.
There are some machines you just know are going to rattle people's cages. That was one such machine. Dan Cullen's first off the mark. That cable would be so annoying. I see where you're coming from, but would it be any more annoying than actually running out of juice? And, on something like a trenching operation, where you put the cable behind you and just keep tracking back and tracking, would that necessarily be that much of an issue? I take your point, though. Ken Hatcher says that will be a good electric machine because Hitachi makes electric trains. I don't know if any technology from the electric trains has come over into the world of construction equipment, but it's a good point. Peter McKenna says you'd get used to the cable. Some quarry machines already use cables. Yes, they do, and they do so very successfully. I do wonder if quarry machines are a little more static than a construction machine, sat on a bench, just loading trucks. There's not a great deal of tracking, perhaps. Please prove me wrong. I'm here to be shot down. What happens when you forget the cable and get caught up in the undercarriage? I don't think they put a lot of thought into that. I bet they did. Chris Ford, morning, Chris. Good of you to join us. 440 volts, lol, he says. Health and safety would have a fit with anything over 110 volts. Good point. Defo, a no from me. A no from me. Cost because of the cost to replace the battery being costly, says Dan Cullen. Dan Cullen is quite clearly not having the new Hitachi machine. Peter McKenna, but it's the future, he says. Is it? Going to say quick good morning to Glenn Johnston, who's just joined us. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Glenn. And Dan Cullen back again. Electronic machines, no, as not recycling of battery, non-existent. It is a challenge, most certainly. I know some micro diggers have removable batteries, but anything up to say 5 ton should have batteries made small enough to remove. Then a second set can be bought and stuck on charge whilst digging with the others. That's certainly the way that things work over in the small tools and that kind of thing. Thinking Hilti and Bosch and those kind of things. Ryobi as well. They all do that very, very successfully. Maybe that is the way forward. And I've certainly seen detachable batteries in. Is it Wacker Neuson? Have got some detachable batteries in their smallest electric machines. Interesting. All I would say is, setting aside all of the electric machine prejudice, Hitachi does look pretty tidy. And let's face it, Hitachi generally gives good excavator. There you go. And from one excavator with virtually no back end to another. The fine folks at Wacker Neuson, just been talking about them, have been busy in the video production department recently. The latest of their machines to feel the glare of the camera is the EX26. As you're about to see, it is so eco-friendly that ladybirds want to hang out with it. This is what it looks like. And the discussion of electric machines continues. Peter McKenna says there are actually 2 battery recycling centres in England. I think we need more than 2, but thank you very much indeed for informing us. Jim, you've just reminded me of something. Komatsu has a micro with removable batteries. I think your footage at Balmer has showed it. I'm fairly sure it did. It was a really little one, wasn't it? The name of which has gone completely out of my head. One of the smallest excavators I think I've ever seen. Pretty sure that had a removable battery, so well remembered, Jim. Peter McKenna is now just listening because he is pushing some muck. Here's our friend Garvin from over at Mostly Diggers. Good morning to you, sir. Thank you for joining us. 110 volts is a standard for hand tools, so it's understandable at that level. 440 volts for a machine will be viewed differently than the hand tool voltages. I totally agree. And he also goes on to say, Wacker Neuson always seem to look at products engineering with fresh eyes each time. I respect that. It's something I've mentioned on the show before, but I'm very glad it's not just me. I go to these major exhibitions, be it Balmer, ConExpo, Intermat, Samota, whatever it might be. And yes, I'm looking forward to seeing what Caterpillar and Liebherr and Komatsu and Hitachi are all up to. But there are 2 stands that I really, really, really genuinely look forward to seeing. One of them is Wacker Neuson, for precisely that reason, because they just tend to seem to have like a skewed vision of the world. The other one is Mechalak for precisely the same reason. They just seem to plough their own furrow, and I'm glad I'm not the only one that's picked up on that. Dan Cullen is more of a fan of the little Wacker than he is of the electric Hitachi, and Mick Norton has just joined us. Excuse me 1 second. Good morning, Mick. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Now, obviously, we've just shown you a couple of little tiny excavators. But if you're in the mood for something bigger, much bigger, stick around. I'll be right back after this. Just had a comment come in from Garvin over at Mostly Diggers. Agreed. He agrees that Mechalak are an interesting innovator as well. Do me a favour, everybody. If you're on Instagram, go follow Mostly Diggers. I do. It's well worth it. Now, it is ranked as one of the biggest excavators in the world. It's made by one of the best equipment manufacturers in the world. It weighs more than 800 tons. It stands more than 10 meters tall. And in diesel configuration, there's an electric one available, probably with a cable. Don't hate me. In diesel configuration, it is powered by 2 engines, each producing 3,000 kilowatts of power. It is the Liebherr R 9800. And this is what it looks like. can't tell you how much I'd like to see one of those in action myself. What an absolute beast. Certainly gone down well in the chat. Mick Norton says, formidable boom dipper geometry on that Liebherr R9800. Yeah, you know, sometimes I wonder if we actually really pay attention to things like that. 800 tons of machine moving. Lord alone knows how much with each bucket load. Unbelievable engineering. Let's have a look. Jim Turner liked the tune. The operators, Jeffro and Wayne, must be happy men. Yeah, wouldn't be a bad place to go to work, would it? Ken Hatcher rightly pointed out you'd need a big cable to supply that with 3,000 kilovolts. Yeah, you certainly would. I wonder what the fuel consumption is per day, says Chris Ford. I would imagine you can probably use the fuel gauge as a fan. I would imagine the damn thing's spinning like that. I'd love to see that in person. Liebherr Mining, if you're out there and listening, I know you often do, please organise a trip for me and for Dan Cullen to go and see that in person. We'd appreciate it. We'd show our... Please, just make it happen. Now, from the sublime, I guess, to the ridiculous. Back after this.
Since the finance bill came into effect in April, the construction industry has seen a surge of fuel thefts. The rising cost of living has placed an additional risk of theft by employees and contractors, as well as opportunistic thieves. By using diesel dye and placing warnings of its use, you are sending a clear message that this is your fuel.
So, if you were here yesterday, you might recall that our resident sprocket spotter, Mr. Ken Hatcher, was talking about a Backhoe Loader Song from the 1980s. Now, personally, the 1980s is my lost decade. I was drunk for most of them, and I have no recollection. Well, I've no recollection of this song. I have no recollection of much of the 80s, to be perfectly honest. I did a search online, and I could find nothing at all. And then, just when I thought this might have just been Ken having a pizza fever dream, he came up trumps. I'll tell you now that the soundtrack to my 1980s sounded rather different to what you're about to hear, but this is oddly catchy, so don't be too surprised if you catch yourself singing this later today. This is the Caterpillar Backhoe Loader Song.
Nobody owns me, and I don't line up for pay, and I'm here to tell you, partner, you can make it your own way. With a loader on the front end and a backhoe on the rear, there's a cat machine to help you shift your life into high gear. Nobody owns me 'cause I'm running my own spread. With my cat backhoe and loader, I found a way to get ahead. With a loader on the front end and a backhoe on the rear, got a cat machine to help me carve out my own career. Nobody owns me, and I don't line up for pay. And I'm here to tell you, partner, you can make it your own way. With a loader on the front end and a backhoe on the rear, there's a cat machine to help you shift your life into high gear. Nobody owns me, and I'm working every day. With my cat backhoe and loader, I'm a man who's on his way. With a loader on the front end and a backhoe on the rear, there's one hard hat who's making it and growing every year. Nobody owns me, and I don't line up for pay. And I'm here to tell you, partner, you can make it your own way. With a loader on the front end and a backhoe on the rear, there's a cat machine to help you shift your life into high gear. Cat machine to help you shift your life into high gear. Nobody owns me, and I don't line up for pay. And I'm here to tell you, partner, you can make it your own way. With a loader on the front end and a backhoe on the rear, there's a cat help you shift your life into high gear. Nobody owns me, and I don't line up for pay. And I'm here to tell you, partner, you can make it your own way. With a loader on the front end and a backhoe on the rear, there's a cab machine to help you shift your life into high gear.
With a loader on the front end and a backhoe on the rear, there's a cab machine to help you shift your life into high gear. Told you it was catchy. Having listened to that, I wish I had some musical talent. I honestly think that the Breakfast Show now deserves a song of its very own, one that mentions all our key elements, question of the day, what happened on this day in history, and also names all of our regular viewers as well. So there's your challenge, people. If any of you have any musical talent, if you can sing, play piano, or play guitar, please write us a Breakfast Show song. I'd be more than happy to hear it here. In the meantime, just on that subject, if you are going to write a song for the Breakfast Show, if you could make it sound like early David Bowie, that'd be even better. Just saying. Yes, it's time for a bit of a gripe, and I'm not going to gripe about that song because, awful as it was, I quite liked it. Another first world problem for you to consider today. Hotel keycards. Let's talk about hotel keycards. I've been lucky enough to stay at St George's Park, the England football team's home away from home, on a number of occasions. If JCB is hosting a big international press event, it is their hotel of choice, as it's just a hop and a skip from their famous and fabulous world headquarters. Now, I guess that between them, JCB, and St George's Park, they must allocate their rooms in alphabetical order. Why do I believe that? Because I've stayed in the same room at least 3 times now. It's on the ground floor, which is dead convenient for breakfast in the morning. And it's so close to reception, they can probably hear me snoring. At St George's Park, my key card has never failed. But put me in a Las Vegas hotel or in another destination where hotel corridors seem to stretch to the horizon. Different matter entirely. You check in, or I check in, clutching several bags. You're given a key card and are told that you're on the 87th floor, room number 4057. You take the lift, and then 47 miles later, you're at your room. You arrive sweaty and gasping for breath. You push the key card into the slot, and rather than a little green light, you get a little red light. Maybe the card's upside down, so you try again. Nothing. Maybe it's back to front. No, nothing. So now you have to walk all the way back to the lift, travel all the way back down to reception, and only to be given another card with the not so reassuring words, "This one should work." Well, the first one should have worked as well. Anybody else have that? Or is it just me? Happened to me very recently. I'm not over it. It's left a scar. Anyway, that's my gripe of the day. I'd love to hear yours. What is it that grinds your gears, gets your goat, and generally butters your proverbial parsnips? The Daily Gripe Therapy Session will return forthwith at some point. That pretty much wraps up the main part of this morning's show. I'm going to roll the outro, because I always do. And then I'm going to leap gazelle-like over into the chat. I also do that all the time as well. I want to find out what you're all saying today. If you can't stick around for that, then please stay safe. Look after yourself, your family, your friends, and your colleagues. And I'll see you again very soon. But if you do have the time and the inclination, let me play out with a final word from our show sponsor, and then I'll see you for the Craic. Good morning, gang. How on earth are we all doing? Now, well, I can't. Mostly Diggers, our friend Garvin, just said, Bowie, can you adapt? We Could Be Heroes, one of my favourite songs, to Let's Get Emissions to Zero. I don't think even Bowie could do that. At Plantworks, my hotel had a permanent on heater in the bathroom. It was already hot enough outside. Hotels. What can I tell you? Right, I'm going to go back to the beginning. Let's have a look. you can't see this, but I, as I've mentioned before, I have a thing called a stream deck on my desk. So when our regular viewers arrive, I've allocated buttons to them. So when Jim Turner and Ken Hatcher and Gary Muirhead arrive, I can literally press a button and say good morning to them automatically. I never had the foresight to actually put the buttons in alphabetical order. So they actually read Jim, Ken, Gary. This morning, they arrived in that order. Jim Turner, Ken Hatcher, Gary Muirhead. Well done, gang. I don't know if there was a memo went around between you, but you arrived in Stream Deck order. Who'd have thought it? Dan, the man coloured. Dan is actually watching over on YouTube today. No idea why that would be. Having problems with Facebook or LinkedIn, perhaps. Wouldn't be the first, but good morning to you. Craig Williams crept in under the cover of darkness. Morning, Craig, over at CSW Groundworks. Didn't see you arrive, but good morning to you, Craig. Thank you very much indeed for being here. Resident sick note, Peter McKenna, is here as well. Morning, Peter. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. The texts are different. I like it. I don't suppose... I think it's because you're seeing it on YouTube. I think it renders slightly differently over on YouTube. If anybody is interested, our YouTube channel has all of our back catalogue of these shows. All 500 well, today will be 529. It's got all our previous shows as well, the ones that weren't called the Break Car Show. So there's a couple of hundred of them as well, plus a whole heap besides. We have a Facebook user who is unnamed. Not entirely sure who that is, but good morning, whoever you are. Our new friend, William Forrest, who I had the pleasure of meeting at Plantworks while we stood there watching Ed Butler do his thing. Had a good chat with William. Good morning to you, sir. Thank you very much indeed for being here. So I posted the wrong question today, so I'm going to throw that up and take it back down again because it was the wrong one. However, Peter McKenna did answer that very quickly. What would you like to be reincarnated as? Definitely a bird of prey, he says, but that was yesterday's question. So we then move on to the real question. What would you like to have been called? Peter again says, I was named after my great-grandfather, who was a famous doctor. Wow. Ken Hatcher would like to have been called Digger, for fairly obvious reasons. Aren't there lots of people in Australia called Digger? Question of the day, I would like to have been called Dave. Seems like that lacks a bit of ambition, to be honest. Now, here's a weird one. I'd have liked to have been called Jim, but my proper name is James, which I don't like. Now, I'm going to take a punt at this. I grew up with a James, who we called Jim. Everybody called him Jim. Jim Norton, his name was. Thoroughly nice player. Played in goal for our school football team for a while. The only person that ever called him James was his mum, and she only ever did it when she was angry with him. He was Jim all the time until he'd upset his mum in some way, at which point he became James. And not just James, he became James Norton. James Norton, tidy your room. Remember it well. I don't know if she's still with us. Bless her cotton socks. Lou Carney would have liked to have been called Matilda. Lou, having known you for as long as I have, I cannot for one moment imagine ever calling you Matilda. But I might just start. I suggested that Peter McKenna should be called Petra. Apparently, his American auntie used to call me precisely that. Petra. Let's have a look. So, electric machines. I've had a Microsoft Teams meeting this morning talking about all things social media. And one of the key drivers of social media, and our friend Garvin over at Mostly Diggers will confirm this, I'm sure, one of the things that drives social media success is engagement. So even if you were to turn up and say, Mark Anthony, you're a total pillock, and frankly, you wouldn't be the first, YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn would all recognize that as engagement. And that engagement will actually work in the favor of this channel, which is fantastic. So when I am teaching people to do social media, which I do from time to time, I always tell them to try and do something that brings engagement. So, you know, if I were to put a video on YouTube, I could say, here is the new Hitachi XYZ. which would be fine, and people searching specifically for the Hitachi XYZ would find it. If, however, I were to use a title like, is this the best electric excavator in the world? There's more intrigue there, isn't there? Now, on the subject of engagement, if I really wanted to drive engagement on this show, and I do sometimes, controversy works. And nothing seems to be more controversial. I know that was a long way around. Nothing seems to be more controversial than electric machines. If I mention an electric machine, whether or not it's got a cable, whether it's big, little, whoever makes it, guaranteed lots and lots of comments. So there you are, Dan Cullen. Not a fan of the cable. And I know where you're coming from, but given the fact that all those machines that have got regular lithium-ion batteries that are expected to run for 4, 5, 6 hours and then have to go on to charge, would a cable not be a better option? Even if you saved certain jobs for that cable, get yourself in a position where you're just tidying up and you're only working in one direction, maybe towards the end of the day, to keep that juice in the machine. Interesting thought. Ken Hatcher reckons that the technology from electric trains will stand Hitachi in good stead. You could well be right. I totally agree. I do think you would get used to the cable. Isn't it? I can't believe I'm using this as an analogy. I've got an electric lawnmower. I don't run the cable over. Mainly because I don't want to go bang and have what little hair I've got left standing on end. But I can perfectly well manoeuvre a cable without going bang at all. Dan, sticking with it though, what happens when you forget the cable and it gets caught in the undercarriage? It's a good question. Yes, health and safety would have a fit about anything over 110 volts. You're absolutely right. But Dan is not convinced. Definite no from him. I'm going to say good morning to Glenn Johnston. Yeah, the problem, the issue I think you've got with removable batteries is they weigh a bloody ton. I think if you're talking about a real micro excavator down in the sort of half a ton mark, then one of those big lift out batteries on a handle, absolutely fine. I think once you start getting up towards that sort of machine, not sure that's going to fly. Although battery technology is improving all the time, so you never know. Apparently there are battery recycling centres in the country, but bearing in mind everything that is battery powered now, and I'm not just thinking about machines, but how many of those are in circulation, how many iPads are in circulation. Lithium ion it's a fantastic thing, but and are they actually recovering the lithium ion from those batteries, I wonder? Not easy, apparently. Jim Turner pays closer attention to our channel than I do. Apparently, we did feature a Komatsu micro excavator from Balmer, and I certainly remember the machine. I do vaguely remember seeing somebody out hoiking a battery out of it. So you're probably right. Peter McKenna went away, but he does come back. But he's off to push some muck. How many other presenters have to deal with their audience going away to push some muck? 110 volts is standard, says our friend at Mostly Diggers, so it's understandable at that level. 440 volts for a machine will be viewed differently than hand tool voltages. They most certainly will. I'll be listening. I think the issue, I think this bit for just listening, the audio from the after show chat, the Craic, absolutely fine, but I think you kind of miss part of the fun if you're listening to a video of a Hitachi excavator. Not sure you're going to get, the tune wasn't bad, but I don't think you're going to get much out of it. Wow, that little machine looks great. That's the Wacker Neuson. Wacker Neuson always seem to look at products engineering with fresh eyes each time. I respect that. And I know we're in agreement on this one, Garvin, and there are little things that people like Wacker Neuson do, and maybe it's because they are that little bit smaller. They're not looking to produce tens and hundreds of thousands of machines. Maybe they're a little more focused, a little more in tune with what customers want. But I do remember, it wasn't the last Balmer, it was the Balmer before. and they had a self-leveling mini excavator. Can't for the life of me remember what it was called, but effectively around about where the slew ring sits, there's also like a hydraulic tilting mechanism. So if you're working on a slope, you can right the cab. I've seen it in forestry applications before, but putting it on a mini excavator, given the circumstances, and bearing in mind, you know, if you're working with a mini excavator on too big a slope, it can tip over. Right the cab, change the centre of gravity, makes perfect sense. And that is the sort of thing that Wacker Neuson are really, really good at. And as we said, Mechalak as well. And I have to admit, the other one that I find really interesting to watch is Bobcat. Bobcat, in a different way, Bobcat seems to have its eye a bit further into the future than anybody else. Things like the max control that we showed you recently. It's not a case of what the customers want. Bobcat seem to have really tuned into what customers might want. They're not overly committed. You know, things like the max control and the OLED heads-up display, not commercially available at the moment, but they've gone to the trouble of actually making it a genuine thing that you could experience, just to see what the market says. And if the market actually says now or at some point in the future, do you know what we could really do with that remote control? Bobcat, bingo, they've already done the work. The R9800, not surprisingly, has gone down a storm. What an absolute tool that is. I'm trying to remember. I'm fairly sure that the big Liebherr excavator at the last Bauma was the R9300, which is an absolute beast in itself. But that's the R9800. Obviously, is its big brother. I'd love a few shifts on that. Can you imagine? I'm not sure what you people drive. You know, in the past, I've driven a variety of sort of fairly low-sitting cars, and then you get yourself in a big four-wheel drive, and it's like you own the road. I bet that is the same feeling in an R9800, but 1,000 times better. You pretty much own the world when you're sat behind the levers of that, I would imagine. Jeffro and Wayne must be happy men. Those are the operators named on the machines, absolutely. Good tune. Jim, as is always the case, whenever I strip out the music and put in something else, I do it with you in mind. I mean that. I'm not joking. I actually went through about, a dozen tunes first thing this morning. Thought, which one would Jim like? And I went with that one. Yeah, Dan Cullen asked what the dig force would be on that R9800. I think the obvious answer is a shit ton. I'm not sure exactly what the true answer is, but unbelievable. And Mick Norton picks up on exactly the same thing. Formidable boom dipper geometry on that Liebherr. I was thinking this the other day about our collective response to things in this industry. Positive things like that, you know, the fact that a team of engineers has sat down and dreamt up a machine that weighs 800 tons, can probably load a Liebherr 789 in 3 or 4 passes. Absolute engineering marvel. And although we're impressed, I wouldn't say we take it for granted, but we look at it and just go, oh yeah, wow. On the flip side of that, I think we have exactly the same. There's a report, I think it's in Construction Inquirer this morning, about a construction worker that's been killed, another one. And our reaction to that is pretty much the same. Someone died. Oh, okay. Right. Anybody for a bacon sandwich? And we just move on. I don't think we take enough time to take a step back and say, you know, wow, or how awful, or whatever the response is. Because I guess we are spending so much time around it. Maybe it's just me. Wonder what the fuel consumption is per day. Let me put it like this. I would not want to be paying for it. Sold, I want it. I'm sure if you've got 4 or 5 million in your back pocket, Galvin, I'm sure it's yours should you want it. That's how many a big crowd have started, biting the bullet and going it alone as an owner-driver. Trying to work out what that's related to. Not sure. I'm back. What a song, says Peter McKenna. Your musical tastes differ somewhat from mine, although with a loader on the front end and a backhoe on the rear, Caterpillar have a machine to put your life in too high gear or words to that effect. See, it's an earworm. It's in there now. I'm going to be humming that all bloody day. No, I can't adapt. We Could Be Heroes. I don't think it fits. But if anybody else can make it happen, please do so. Glad I don't live the high life. Key cards. Yeah. Look, I know, and I know these are first world problems. But everybody's got their little working frustrations. Listen, I don't spend a lot of time in hotels. I have this year. I mean, I've been away quite a bit this year. But it is surprisingly annoying. Should I tell you a quick story? I know we've got some more things to go. Sorry, something just flashed up on my screen. It's gone. So years and years ago, sadly, the guy in question is no longer with us, my best mate. But I was invited to go to Paris for literally a day trip. The plan was to go to London City Airport, which at the time had just opened, and we were flying over to Paris to see some equipment working on and around the Arc de Triomphe. Spot a lunch, fly back, job done. And this was on a Friday. And Friday in the 80s for me was pub day. Let me rewind. All the days in the 80s were a pub day for me, but Fridays in particular were sacrosanct. You had to be at the pub on a Friday. So, some ungodly hour in the morning, I am at London City Airport, glass of champagne in my hand. Seriously, I was handed a glass of champagne as I arrived. We flew to Gay Paris, only to find that the equipment we'd gone there to see had actually packed up and gone home. So we went and found a bar, and we had a couple more glasses of champagne, and then we had some lunch, and we had a couple of glasses of champagne, and then we jumped on the plane, and we had a couple of glasses of champagne, and I got home basically in time to go straight to the pub. And I went to the pub, and I found my best mate stood at the bar. He gave me the usual welcome. "You all right? How was your day?" I said, "My day was terrible. Terrible. I had to get up at dawn. I had to fly to Paris. I've been plied with champagne, and after all of that, after all of the trouble that I went to, the machines I'd gone to see were not there." And he took a very quick sip of his pint, and Bruce, my best mate, who was a builder, said, "I've had my head down somebody's toilet all day." That put it in perspective. So, listen, I'm aware that key cards are the high life. They're just a petty frustration that I have to contend with. One of the many. Garvin at Mostly Diggers. At Plantworks, my hotel had a permanent on heater in the bathroom. It was already hot enough outside. I've had both sides of that. I've had the can't turn the heating off. I've also had the can't turn the heating on. I stayed in a hotel in Finland once, and it was, I can't remember what time of year this would have been, but it was, you know that bit of year in Finland where it's basically light the entire time. So I flopped into bed. I'd been out drinking again. I don't do that anymore, but I'd been out drinking. Flopped into bed, and because I'd been drinking, and I think I'd been on the red wine, so I was feeling nice and warm. Not feeling any pain, but just feeling nice and warm. And then at about 3 o'clock in the morning, I discovered that I was actually freezing to death. Could I find a heating control to turn up the heating? No, I couldn't. So what did I do? I got dressed and got back into bed. Put all my own clothes on and got back into bed. Another operator on my machine today, and he busted the blade off. I actually saw a very quick video from our friend Dan showing exactly that over on our WhatsApp group. Yes, we have a WhatsApp group. If you would like to join it, you can do so using the link that I've just posted in the chat. How on earth? What in the name of all that's holy was your man trying to push to actually take the entire blade off? And it's not just the blade, it's the mount as well. I mean, it's literally broken it from the machine. It's not broken the blade, it's broken the entire assembly off the machine. What was he trying to move? The future? I have no idea. Because I haven't got a million things to do for you, Mark. Okay, fine. We have a song, people. Does this go to a tune? I'm going to get Fred on the case. Early in the morning as the day begins to break, Mark Anthony's on the radio with news to make you wake. It's 10 a.m. on the weekdays across the social space on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. He's got the human race. He's talking demolition, construction's his delight. The gears of industry turning in the morning light to build the world around us in bricks and steel and stone. Mark Anthony tells a story, so they're never alone. Wow. Lou, listen, I already knew you were a hugely talented woman, Matilda, but that needs to go. I'm not going to sing it, I promise you now, but I'm going to get Fred on the case and see if we can put some music to that. And just when you think, wow, Lou, that's a hidden talent, she fesses up. Love ChatGPT. For those of you that don't know, that's an AI, but well done. And Peter McKenna laughed as well. Let's have a look. Oh man, electric excavators get reactions for sure. Everyone has an opinion and most get pretty animated about it and want to know exactly what they think. Yeah, absolutely. That, I mean, all joking aside about what Lou's just said with her Breakfast Show tribute song, that's exactly what this show's all about. It is an opportunity for you to give your own opinion. I wonder though how much of the backlash against electric machines is true backlash against electric machines, or whether it is fear of the unknown, fear of the new. I wonder, taking Dan Cullen for example, I wonder if you could give him a day or two in one of those Hitachi machines, complete with the cable that he could drop in and drop out as he needs to. I wonder if his feeling would still be the same afterwards. Interesting thought. Hitachi, if you're watching, he's over in Hertfordshire. Give him a bell. Get him on the machine. Convince him. Craig Williams says, I must say, it's always nice to see Wacker Neuson's force mate. Yeah, it really is. I really... This has just occurred to me, and I don't know quite why, and you bear with me. I like a lot of comedians. I like Billy Connolly, and I like Peter Kay and Mickey Flanagan, but the one that tickles me the most tends to be Eddie Izzard, because here is the real world and here's Eddie Izzard's world. If anybody's ever seen his skit on the canteen on the Death Star, that's how Eddie Izzard's mind works, and in the nicest possible way, that seems to be how Wacker Neuson's minds work. Here's what the rest of the world is doing. Here's what Wacker Neuson are doing. And I love them for it. Wacker Neuson, good morning. Keep up the good work. With the bigger machines, all a matter of scale. Everything around it is bigger. It's just that they stay the same. There was our link to our WhatsApp group. Sing in the style of Please Mr. Gravedigger. I'm not singing anything in the style of anything. Nobody needs that. I have enough trouble getting people to watch this show as it is. I could scare them all away with one quick blast. Eddie Izzard is a genius, absolute legend, great live too. Yes, I went to see him a few years ago on his Force Majeure tour. To give you an idea of how skewed Eddie Izzard's worldview is. Most comedians, and I've seen Peter Kay, I've seen Mickey Flanagan, I've seen Lee Evans and so on. Most of them come on and they want to get a quick laugh in to get the thing rolling. And I know Lee Evans was notoriously nervous, so he used to come on and do like a bunch of really quick one-liners just to get the audience and himself warmed up, and then he would start. Not Eddie Izzard. Eddie Izzard walked on, sashayed around as Eddie Izzard does, walked up, grabbed the microphone, and his opening words were, "Human sacrifice, eh?" Made me laugh, and he then went on to explain exactly why he was talking about human sacrifice. Eddie Izzard's worldview, just over here. See, somebody knows. Somebody knows their ideas are. Yes, Jeff Vader. Please, if I realise it sounds like I've been drinking again. If you haven't ever seen Death Star Canteen, go over to YouTube when this is all over and done with, which is going to be in about 3 seconds' time. Go and have a look. Trust me, it is about as funny as it gets. At least it is to me. Right, people, that is the best part of an hour of anyone's life. See, she knows. Jeff Vader from Cheam, which, funnily enough, is where Lou Carney is from originally. Lou Carney and Jeff Vader. Did you go to school with Jeff Vader? I know you went to school with my wife, but did you go to school with Jeff Vader, Lou? The world needs to know. Maybe that's why you want to be known as Matilda in the future. Right, people, go and have a fantastic day. I've completely lost my train of thought. Don't forget, obviously I'll be back here tomorrow for the final show of the day. We'll plan to do a construction equipment show in tomorrow afternoon as well. Obviously, full week next week, including our Wednesday night special featuring the Jumbo, which will be at 7 o'clock on Wednesday night. I hope you can join us for that. In the meantime, everybody, have a fantastic day. Thank you for all the contributions, particularly Jeff Vader from Cheam, which has made my morning. Everybody, have a fantastic day. See you all soon. All the best.